today's video we are going to be doing another tier list today, and we are going to be doing a tier list about Tottenham. So it is another keep, loan, sell video, and this time we're going to be talking about Spurs. So we have done these videos for Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool and Manchester City so far, so check those videos out if you haven't done so already. But the way it works is, it's pretty simple. I've got a tier list here of the 25-26 Tottenham's squad, at least as of recording. Now I'll be putting them into the current tiers: build around, keep, loan, contract expiry and sell. Pretty self-explanatory. Build around are for those 2 or 3 core players who I'll be looking to build around, sort of be the spine, the core of my team, the untouchable guys who are going to play week in, week out and be part of the sort of Tottenham core next season. And I thought Tottenham would be an interesting one because of course they've had a poor season, so a lot of players need to go, but they have of course sacked Ange. And I haven't actually spoken about it since it's happened, but and if you want my quick thoughts, I would say, look, obviously it's harsh considering he's won the Europa League and, you know, given him a trophy for how long, but I do understand it to an extent in terms of, I mean, he did lead you to 17th, and it's almost a bit of Ten Hag in a way. Like if they had kept him, you know, like how Ten Hag won the FA Cup last year and sort of papered over the cracks a little bit, they kept him in the job and just sacked him in the end. I do understand it, although I do feel a little bit sorry for Ange, who did win a trophy. But anyways, Ange is gone, a new manager's coming in. As a recording, I don't know who it is. It looks like it'll be Thomas Frank, but that actually doesn't really change my rankings here, because I'm really just going to base it on what I would do, not what I think is going to happen. Okay, so let's get into it. So we're starting off with the goalkeepers here, and by the way, I did not make this tier list, so like they've included like a bunch of people. Like here's, I'm gonna be very brief with like Brandon Austin. Sure, you can stay around. So can this guy, I don't even know who you are. Kinski, you can stay. I think Kinski has been a perfectly fine backup. Number 2, Fraser Forster. His contract is expiring, but I don't mind keeping him just as a third choice keeper. It is what it is. It's not the end of the world if he stays. Now Vicario, I will say this, I haven't really been impressed with Vicario this season. I think he's taken a big drop off, and I think we sort of know what you're going to get with Vicario though. I'll say this about Vicario, generally I think he's actually a alright keeper, you know. Shot stopping for the most part is pretty decent, is pretty solid. He can make some really good saves here and there, but the issue with Vicario is of course his claiming of crosses, his aerial presence. He's not a dominant keeper, and you know he is prone to an error. But that being said, I am willing to keep him as my number 1 for now, just because there are a lot of other issues in the Spurs squad that need to be addressed. But I will say, if he doesn't step up his game next season, maybe I'll start to look for a new number 1. Right, onto the defenders now. Pedro Porro is definitely a keep. Pedro Porro has, I think, been one of Spurs' better players this season. And I think overall Pedro Porro is one of Spurs' best players. I think he's a good right back. Yeah, I'm perfectly fine keeping him as my right back. Jed Spence I'm also very happy to keep as the backup right back. Spence has actually been a bit of a surprise this season. Was really good actually, filling in for Porro, filling in for a doggy, whether that be right back or left back. Didn't really get a chance, but he has in the second half season got a chance and was really good, so I'm happy to keep him as backup. Destiny Doggy likewise will be a keep. To be fair, he has struggled this season, I will say a dog, he hasn't had a great year, but he is still relatively young, to be fair to him. And I think the year before, a doggy was actually quite good, so I'm willing to give him another season at left back. Right, now this is where it gets interesting, centre backs. So Romero, look, there is a lot of talk that Guti Romero could potentially leave Spurs. I think Atletico Madrid are interested in him. Quite a few clubs are interested in him because he's only got 2 years left on his deal. He's sort of in his prime years now. One of the more sellable assets for Spurs, and of course is a fantastic centre-back on his day. But look, if I'm Spurs, I'm trying my best to do what it takes to keep Romero, in my opinion. And actually, Romero would be, like, if I'm ignoring what is sort of realistically going to happen, I'm going to say, actually, for me, Romero would be a build around. I think Romero is a pretty good centre-back, actually. I think he's shown it for Argentina multiple times, and he has shown it for Spurs, in all fairness to him. This last season, he has had a dip-off for sure, but again, even in moments we've seen the best of Romero. I thought in the Europa League final is fantastic, so if I'm in charge, I would definitely try and build around Romero. I think he's a rock at the back, and he is definitely a great centre-back you want to be keeping around and keeping as part of your spine. That being said, I don't know if he actually will stay. It wouldn't surprise me if he did leave, but I would be trying to keep him around for sure. Mickey van der Ven will definitely be a keep. I'm not going to say build around just because, I mean, he's been so injury prone and has had a lot of injuries. It's kind of hard to build around a player who's always injured, right? But Van der Ven, when he is fit, I think him and Romero is a fantastic centre-back partnership. He is still young, so he's still got plenty of time to develop and hopefully get over some of those injury issues he's had this season. Yeah, but I will be keeping Van der Ven. Now Radu Dragusin, I'm not gonna lie, I think I would probably sell. I'd probably sell Dragusin. I'm not entirely sure you can, but because I think he's like done his ACL or something like that. But yeah, I just think, look, Dragusin I think is a alright centre back. Like, he's fine. I sort of liken him to like a Disasi at Chelsea. I think it's sort of that situation where, you know, he's a decent centre back for sure. I think for like a top half sort of Premier League side, he would be really good. I think he can be a really good centre back in that sort of team. I just don't think he's ready. I don't think he's the level to be playing at a top 6 side, to be playing at a team competing in the Champions League next season. I don't think he's as well sort of like good enough to be playing on like a really ball dominant team. I think he's much better when you play in a team who maybe sits back a little bit. So for that reason, I would get rid of Dragusin. I don't think he's quite up to the level for Spurs. So yeah, I would get rid of him. Kevin Danso, have literally just signed him on a permanent, so yeah, I'll be keeping him. Get him on loan, and that has been made permanent, and I don't really have too many issues with that. I think Danso's been perfectly fine since he's come in at Spurs, and he's a solid depth option. I believe it's this Ashley Phillips who was on loan at, I want to say Stoke. I believe has actually done pretty well in the Championship last year, but I think I would loan him. I think I'd send him to try and maybe get him to a high-level Championship loan, like a team pushing for promotion, like I don't know, Leicester or something like that, or Southampton. That would sort of be my aim with him because he's still young, but I don't think he's quite ready for the Spurs first team yet. Ben Davis, I would be selling. I think a great servant, a fantastic servant to the club. I'll give him that. Ben Davis, you know, not the most flashiest name in the squads, not the biggest ego, not the player who's going to win you a match on his own, but He's always been Mr. Reliable for Spurs. He has been at Spurs for like a decade now or something. He's been there forever. He's always put in a shift for them, but he's coming towards the end of his career at Spurs now. He's getting on a little bit, and I think he does need to depart. I mean, I'm not entirely against just keeping him around the squad as a little squad player for the dressing room, but yeah, I think Ben Davies, at his age now, he's sort of like in his 30s. He's alright, but I would probably be moving him on, to be honest. Reguilon contract expiry, I think. Pretty simple. His contract is expiring this summer, and he will be moving on. Yeah, just barely played, and yeah, rightfully so. Move him on. RG Gray is, of course, a keep. Oh my days! What on earth has just happened? There we go. RG Gray keep. Yeah, fairly simple one. Very young player, has done very well at Spurs in his first season. I'm excited to see how he does. Hopefully he can actually play in the midfield next season, which is his actual position. Lucas Bergvall. You know what, I would actually say build around. I think Bergvall has been fantastic for Spurs this season. I think he is the future of the Spurs team and the Spurs midfield. I would actually be building around him. I know it's crazy to say on such a young player, but I think he's been one of Spurs' best players this season. I will be looking to hopefully he can make another step up. Next season I will be looking to make him a starting midfielder for sure. Next season, yeah, I think under the new manager, let's see if he can continue this development, but I've been really impressed by Bergvall. So I really do think he should be a key player for Spurs next season. Okay, now Bentancur, I would probably sell. Yeah, Bentancur, he's got 1 year left on his deal. I don't think it's been particularly great this season. In all fairness, he has been asked to play as sort of a 6, and I don't think he's really been able to do that. I don't think that's really where he's best, but he's like 27 now, 1 year left on his deal. I think you just get rid of Bentancur, if I'm being completely honest. Yeah, I don't think he's quite at the level to be starting. He's an alright backup depth option, but I don't think he's good enough. I think you need to be getting in another DM really at Spurs. That does lead me on to Basuma, which is an interesting one. Because again, like Bentancur, I think he has struggled in the Ange Postecoglou system, playing as like this lone DM. I don't think it really suits him. Thinking a double pivot, he might be better, but again, like Bentancur, I believe he only has 1 year left on his deal. He's 28 now. But the problem is, I think you have to sell one of Bentancur or Basuma. And if I'm selling Bentancur, I think I need to keep Basuma as a depth option. Just because, you know, the midfield will be a little bit light if I sell both of them. And I do think Basuma is slightly better than Bentancur, so I'll keep Basuma over Bentancur, I guess, but I would sell one of them, to be honest, and be looking to bring in another midfielder. Perhaps Arvo, for sure, will be a keep. I think he's been pretty solid this season for Spurs. Yeah, decent young player. I like the way he's progressing, has got a decent amount of minutes. I'm not sure he's quite ready to be starting, you know, week in, week out for Spurs, but I think is a really solid player to have in that midfield area. Bjorn Højbjerg, I believe is loan. Technically, he is on loan at Marseille, but I believe that's already been made permanent, so yeah, he'll be gone. Dejan Kulusevski. Okay, well, I mean, I'm not going to sell Kulusevski, but it's a thing about, is he in build around or is he in keep? I would say keep, just because I think when he's come back from his injury, he hasn't been amazing. Like in the second half of the season, he hasn't been like fantastic for Spurs. Before that, he was actually really, really good. And I do think Kulusevski as a player, fantastic player, James Maddison will be a keep. Yeah, again, on his day, pretty good, pretty good. He can be a really good attacking midfielder, but yeah, he's a little bit inconsistent. He is injured, of course, so we'll see how he recovers from injuries, and in general he is quite injury prone, but yeah, I'll be keeping him. Brennan Johnson, yeah, I guess I'll keep him, just because, Spurs have invested quite a bit of money in him. I mean, he's been alright this season in terms of pure output. He's actually been one of Spurs' better attackers in terms of goal scoring and just numbers. If you look at the numbers, you'll be like, oh yeah, Brennan Johnson had a pretty good season. But really, outside of that, his overall game is quite poor. If he's not scoring a goal, he's not really contributing much to your team. For that reason, I don't think Brennan Johnson should be the starting winger for Spurs. I think they definitely should be trying to get someone else. And Brennan Johnson should not be starting for Spurs, but I think he's an alright depth option off the bench or rotational piece. Wilson Audible, I will be keeping. You know what? Unfortunate for him, but he has sort of suffered quite a few injuries in his first campaign, but I actually think from what I've seen, Audible looks like a solid player, still very young, still very raw, but I think he's got some great abilities. He's shown it in glimpses at Spurs, so I'm excited to see what happens next year with a full campaign under his belt. This guy, I don't even know his name, but I believe he's like some Korean wonder kid they've got, who was on loan at QPR. I guess I'll send him on another loan. Brian Hill will definitely be a sell on loan at Girona, and I think has been okay at Girona, but I'm not entirely sure. Either way, he's gotta go. Yeah, I think you probably get like 10 mil maybe for him, but I think you just cash in on him. Whatever you can get, he doesn't really have a future at Spurs. Manor Solomon, I would also sell. He was on loan at Leeds. Did very well in the Championship by all accounts at Leeds, but look, I think he's done well there, but I don't see him ever really being Spurs level. I don't think he'll ever get to a level where he's ready to start week in, week out for Spurs, and I actually think you can get a pretty decent fee off the back of his Leeds loans. Leeds back in the Prem will probably want to keep him, so I reckon you could probably get a decent fee for him, and yeah, I don't think he's gonna be able to be playing for Spurs, but I think you can get a solid fee, so that's why I would sell. Son will be a keep. Yeah, extend his contract, I think, for another year. Captain of a club, still is useful. I'm not sure is sort of at his age anymore, capable of being your starting left winger anymore. I would probably look to maybe get someone else in. He can still contribute here and there, but on a consistent basis, if you're really trying to compete at the top, I'm not sure Son is quite there at his age anymore to be your guy, but yeah, still be keeping him, of course. Mikey Moore, I believe this is, I might be wrong, but yeah, definitely a keep for sure. Dominic Solanke, again, a definite keep. Invested a lot of money in him. I think he's been alright in his first season. Nobody can kick on next year. I think this is Dane Scarlett. I would probably sell, to be honest. Yeah. Been at the club for a while now. I think he just needs to move on a permanent basis. He's had a couple loans which haven't really worked out, so been moving on. Richarlison, for me, is a sell as well. Yeah, look, Richarlison, I think the whole transfer Spurs just hasn't worked, has it, right? Like, they invested a lot of money in him. It was a bit of a weird move to spend that much on him at the time. I think we all sort of thought it, and he really hasn't worked out. I will say he has, I think, got better at Spurs. Like, his first season was real bad. At this point, he's not that bad. Like, he can still contribute to Spurs, but I think you can still get a pretty sizable fee, if I'm being completely honest, for him, based on sort of what he did at Everton, right? think you could probably get like 25 mil maybe for a Richarlison, which is pretty good money. So I think you just take that, move on, because I don't really see a world where Richarlison will ever be your number 9 at Spurs, or ever be a starter for Spurs. I think he's sort of a player who's just a level below, if I'm being completely honest. Matthias Tel, obviously is on loan from Bayern. I think they have an option to buy, but I would not be triggering that. I would be letting him go back to Bayern. Yeah, I think Tel is still very young, still got a lot of potential, but I'm not sure I've seen enough from him in the loan spell to really justify spending what I think was like £35 million option to buy. I wouldn't really be spending that much money on him. As I said, good young player. I think he's had a couple moments in a Spurs shirt, but overall hasn't really impressed, hasn't really done enough to justify trying to buy him on a permanent. Timo Werner, same thing of course, on loan from Leipzig, definitely will not be extending that at all. Has contributed nothing to this Spurs team. And then this is, I believe, Aleo Vélez, who is on loan at Espanyol, but will definitely be a sell. He has really failed at Espanyol, not done anything of note in La Liga. And yeah, I think you need to cut your losses. And yeah, these guys, I don't know who these guys are, and I'm just in this tier list too, but yeah, there we go. So I would only actually be building around 2 players, Romero and Lucas Bergvall. To be fair, I would actually be keeping the majority of sort of the starters and the squad for Spurs. I don't think like their starting 11 is that bad. I just think we need to add some areas. I think get rid of some players, like cut the sort of really bad squad players out the squad, and then just add some quality pieces. And I actually think Spurs have some, decent players here to maybe kick on next season and get back into like the top 6 in terms of a league finish. But we'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts on the tier list. Who would you be keeping or selling at Spurs? If you guys have enjoyed, please do leave a like, consider subscribing.